This is Real Deal Sports Talk with KP, July 23rd, 2018.
Mr. Green.
I'm found to be the nicest. On the mic it with rhyme writing. My mind states gone cipher divine righteous. This is the sound of refinement. Extra time spent on every line written. You can hear the difference when I'm rhyming. The barbarian rap writings like Clash of the Titans. I wield the pen like Poseidon holding the golden triton. On the mic I strike faster than vipers and flashes of bolts of lightning. My poetry will leave the Pope enlightened. Whack rappers is past time. You paid the Pied Piper as the price just skyrocket. I stand to make a profit. I rap circles and spirals above your favorite artist, like an identifiable flying object with balls so far over your head. I'm honest to be rhyming in high orbit. If I dumb the metaphors down, you think the sky was falling. Rappers' arms too short to shadow box with the lords in the pantheon of rap. I'm the high exalted, the new God flow. Prepare your offering. I treat the booth like the synagogue, cause the mic's my calling. I should congregate a following, although agnostic. You felt the flow was God sent, further personifying my Messiah complex.
And welcome into Real Deal Sports Talk. I'm KP. This is my show. How is everybody doing today on this Monday? I hope your week is starting off well. I hope you're tuning in today. Maybe your week didn't start off well. Maybe you had a shitty time at work today and you're turning it on going, you know, I hope KP's going to bring it today. I hope he's got something for me on Monday. And you know what? I'm going to try and do that for you. For the rest of y'all who had a great day on this Monday, who appreciate the rain we getting here in Denver, Colorado today, or, you know, you out there in the country, in the world, somewhere else doing your thing and you just feeling good. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for following the show. I appreciate it. You know how we get down. It's real on this show. And you guys be real with me. I'm be real with you. That's how it works. So today on the show, last time we talked, I did the NFC North predictions. Today on the show, we're going to do the AFC North predictions. We're going to talk a little bit about this MLB expansion that Rob Manfred is talking about. We're going to talk about this trend. Is it a trend? Can we call it a trend of guaranteed money in NFL being passed out? NFL also had a tragic loss that we'll talk about today. Coach Soprano died at the age of 56. Sperano, excuse me. Had a TV show stuck in my head. I couldn't get past my own tongue. Sperano died at age 56. The Minnesota Vikings offensive line coach. We'll talk about that a little bit. What else are we going to try and get to today? Tiger. We'll try and get to Tiger if we have time at the end. A lot of stuff we could talk about. We'll see what we get to. I do want to start off the show, let everybody know that the third annual Real Deal Sports Talk Fantasy Football League is coming up. KP Showdown is the name of the league. The draft will be September 1st at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. All of the information, if you are interested in participating, is on the website at realdealsportstalkwithkp.com. You can listen to the show from there. We do have some new stuff on the website, of course, outside of just the information for the Fantasy League. We have our links to allsportsmarket.com. We have our new social media links so that you can reach out and follow me and the show across the board. And now I'd like to announce we do have the Barbarians music video for their track Godzilla up on the page right now. So if you want to go check that out, go to realdealsportstalkwithkp.com, click on check us out, scroll down to the Barbarians. You can watch their new joint for Godzilla. Also, you can always email the show. That's on there, rdst.wkp@gmail.com. Our text line is out there, 720-515-5597. So, you know, we're out there. You want to get in contact with me. You want to tell me how smart I am. You want to tell me how dumb I am. Bring it. You want to get on the show. You got an idea. You want to debate me. Bring that too. There's a form on the website. You can reach out. If you want to reply, you can leave your email and I will get back to you personally and we can work something out. We can bring the debate onto the show if you want to. We can just talk off air. It's all real. It's all love. It's sports. So any way you guys want to work it, you want to get down, we'll get down. Oh, exciting news. Let's start with some exciting news first. This is the last weekend. The last. No more weekends without football after this week. After this weekend, we will not go a weekend without football until after the Super Bowl. For some of us, you got to be cheering right now. I know I'm giddy in this chair. I got goosebumps on my arms. Like I'm ready to put the pads on like I'm still playing. I can feel it in the weather. Like I'm driving by fields going, man, where's the two-a-day practices? It's that time of year. It's that time. Hall of Fame game, August 2nd. A week from this Thursday, we have our first NFL preseason game. We already talked about teams going back to training camp. Chicago versus Baltimore will be kicking it off. Joe Flacco thinks that if they win this year, he's going to keep his job. Well, Joe, that's probably your only chance of keeping your job this year after Lamar Jackson was signed. Ozzie Newsome has set that team up for the future. He brought in a future quarterback. He brought in the future quarterback's backup. And they got nobody on the roster, Joe, that plays like you do. If you get hurt, you're done. You don't do well this season, you're done. You don't win the Super Bowl this year, you're more than likely done. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't have anything against Joe Flacco. He's a good NFL quarterback. I don't think he was worth the contract that he got a few years back, several years ago. I said it would hurt the team and that they would have trouble making it to the playoffs and signing other players. Since then, that is exactly what has happened with Baltimore. Joe Flacco did not deserve that contract. He is a good quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo could be a good quarterback. He did not deserve the contract he just got. Okay? So we're going to start seeing some of that. We'll see how Flacco does. But if Lamar Jackson is balling in the preseason, if he is tearing these fields up, if he looks like Deshaun Watson did, it's going to be real hard for Joe Flacco to keep his job if he's not mistake-free and he doesn't take them to the promised land. Sorry, Joe. That's how it is. 2018, time to kick it off. Hall of Fame game, August 2nd, a week from Thursday. Woo! It's going to be good. It's going to be good. College football kicks off August 25th. That's right around the corner. So for everybody out there who's still down on the NFL, down on the owners, I'm with you. The business side I can't get down with. I'm not going to stop repping the players. I'm not going to stop supporting the players, especially those that are brave enough to stand up for what is right at a time when this country is divided on what is right and what is wrong. So if you into college football, I'm into college football. I'm into all football. Go watch college football instead of NFL. That's great. Do your thing. It's getting ready to come around the corner. You should be excited. Don't worry about talking about the negatives and why you don't like this sport and what you don't like about that sport. You want to do that? Go get a show. Otherwise, enjoy your sport. Make it positive. Make it love. Put a smile on your face. You know? For the family of Coach Sperano, Tony Sperano, not Tony Sperano, the Speranos, our thoughts and well wishes go out to your family. It's definitely tough to lose a loved one. Look for the good times. Celebrate his accomplishments. Celebrate the greatness he brought to your lives. He was a good coach. He was a good offensive line coach. He solidified that offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings. It very well could be something that hurts the Vikings this year. It very well could be something that is a rallying cry for that team or just for the offensive line. Like, this happened right before they're getting ready to report for camp. He wakes up on a Sunday after being in the hospital and getting everything checked out and going home, and it don't work out for him. That's it. That's all that was written. And that's tough. That's tough on the NFL community. That's tough on players that knew him when he was a head coach, when he's been in other stops along his path. He has touched a lot of lives, and he is going to be missed. And that's tragic for the football community that a coach like Mr. Sperano has passed away. All right, let's get into our next set of division predictions. All right, the other day we did division predictions, and we did the NFC North. We broke down where they were in 2017, what their rankings were, additions, departures, coaching changes, or who their key coaches are, what their record's going to be on the season, what some of their key games might be. And we did that for the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings, and the Bears. Today's show, we're going to go ahead and do their AFC counterpart, AFC North. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Baltimore. All the same categories. We're going to go ahead and we're going to kick it off with what this division and these teams did last year. So their 2017 standings within the division, how the division broke down. So Pittsburgh last year, 13-3, won that division. We all saw how that worked out. Made it to the divisional round in the playoffs, lost to Jacksonville. 7-1 on the road, 6-0 in the division. You go 6-0 in your division, there's a good chance you're not only going to win that division, but you're going to be in the playoffs and go deep. Now, I in no way expect Pittsburgh to go 6-0 in the division this year, nor do I expect them to go 13-3. Baltimore was second in the division last year, 9-7. Okay, they were 3-3 in the division. Cincinnati 3-3 in the division, 7-9 on the season. And Cleveland, we all know they've won one game in the last 2 years, 0-16 last year. Now, where did these teams rank offensively and defensively last year? On the offensive side of the ball, you had Pittsburgh. They were the third-ranked offense. Then you got to go quite a ways down the list. Cleveland 24, Baltimore 27, Cincinnati 32. Things are looking up for this division, in my opinion. I don't expect all of their teams to finish in the bottom third of the league in offense, except Pittsburgh. On the defensive side of the ball, Pittsburgh's the only team with top 5 offense and defense. They came in 5th on the defensive side of the ball. Moving down, Baltimore's at 12, Cleveland 14, and Cincinnati at 18. So defensively, this division is much stronger than they were offensively last year, which is surprising. Cincinnati had all those weapons, wasn't able to convert that into anything. They were the 32nd ranked offense. Again, don't expect that out of Cincinnati again this season. So as far as Pittsburgh, arrivals and departures. Through free agency, basically, right? Because that's how, outside of free agency, you have arrivals and departures. They're either retiring, injured, traded, or they're free agents. So they re-signed a couple guys. Nobody who too important to the team that they re-signed. They did bring John Bostic over, who's been traveling around a lot the last few seasons. New England, Detroit, Indy, and now he's in Pittsburgh. And they brought over Morgan Burnett. He's going to be a nice solid piece, veteran on the back end of that defense. They lose a William Gay. They lose a Chris Hubbard. And then they have quite a few guys that went into free agency that are sitting there unsigned right now for whatever reason. Either Pittsburgh didn't want them back. They're talking with other teams, like Eli Rogers, for instance. He's talking with some other teams right now. So we'll see what some of those guys end up doing. Not a lot in free agency there. Their best pickup is probably Morgan Burnett. We'll see what he has left in the tank. 8 years in the league. Bostic seems to be a solid linebacker, not a great linebacker, but often injured. So we'll see how he can fit into the rotation of linebackers there in Pittsburgh. He's got to play an inside linebacker role. He's not an outside guy. He's not a rusher. So he's got to take one of those 2 inside spots if he's going to be a starter. As far as the draft, didn't really have high marks on anybody in the NFC North in the draft. But as far as Pittsburgh, Terrell Edmonds, the safety from Virginia Tech. Okay, now you got your young safety to pair with Morgan Burnett. Mike Adams is out the door. You bring in a James Washington. You bring in his quarterback, Mason Rudolph, who potentially could be a Big Ben replacement a couple years down the line. I thought Mason Rudolph was a better quarterback than where he got drafted. We'll have to see. Marcus Allen, the safety out of Penn State, round 5, kind of like that pick. And then the defensive tackle, Joshua Frazier, out of Alabama. Okay, probably a rotational guy. Not going to be a starter. Could turn into something. Alabama defensive lineman. Decent draft. Don't know if I would give it a grade because we don't know when some of these guys are going to play. We don't know how Mason Rudolph is going to turn out. We don't know if Chucks Okafor is going to play this year or be on the team, or Jalen Samuels for that matter. So we'll have to see with Pittsburgh's draft. But Pittsburgh has had kind of a quiet offseason. Not a lot of moves, not a lot of departures, not a lot of arrivals, kind of the status quo, which is shocking for a team like Pittsburgh. You want to see a Steelers team, a team that has their lineage, going out and doing something. That's not what the Steelers do. They're homegrown. They like to develop. They like to build. Maybe a piece here or there. Tomlin's back. They do go out and they get a new offensive coordinator. Todd Haley's gone. And they bring in what's his name? Randy Fitchner. Randy Fitchner is the offensive coordinator. He's in his 8th season as the quarterback's coach, so he knows Ben well. He knows what those guys like to do. He's seen what the skill players are good at. We'll have to see what this Steelers offense is going to look like this year. They also bring in a Mike Munchak for the offensive line. They have Keith Butler running the defense again this year. Not a lot of changes on the defensive side of the ball at all as far as the coaching goes. So, again, status quo with the Steelers. We're going to get better, but we're going to get better our way. And our way is not to go out and get everybody else. Our way is not to go out and try and, pick and choose. Our way is the Steeler way. We're going to draft well. We're going to develop well. We're going to coach well. We're going to play hard. We're going to play as a team. And it's going to be blue collar. And sure, they hit on some picks every now and then. Every team does. As far as what I think their record's going to be this season, I expect the Steelers to be somewhere around 10-6. Looking at what their key games could be, they have a relatively easy start to their season, in my opinion, all the way up until Week 7 in the bye week. At Browns, Kansas City, at Bucks, Ravens, Falcons, Bengals. Now, some people might be going, whoa, Kansas City's good. The Ravens, the Falcons, all the division games with the Browns and the Bengals. Okay, yeah, but basing it off what these teams are, who these teams are, because we haven't seen improvements yet. This is based on paper. We haven't seen them play these teams in 2018. These are predictions, prognostications. I think the first 6 weeks for Pittsburgh are pretty easy. Now, then they get into a stretch in early November, starting November 8th, where they have Carolina, at Jacksonville, at Denver, Chargers, at Raiders, the Patriots, at New Orleans, and then they finish with the Bengals. So key games from them, everything starting from November on. They are in playoff mode starting in November. Because that is a stretch of games, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 games, more than half of their season, that are going to be against teams that are either be in the playoffs, competing for the playoffs, are high-quality teams. Like, their easy games in there right now are going to be at Denver, at Oakland. That's the way their easy games look. And really, Denver should be much better this year. Oakland should be better this year. So key games for Pittsburgh is the second half of the season. Because where I see them going 10-6 And the first 6 games being pretty easy or, winnable to start off your 2018 campaign. Those last 9 games, you slip up there, you're not making the playoffs. Cincinnati Bengals, what a disappointment they were last year. I did not foresee them going 7-9. I had them doing better than 7-9 on the season. I did not see them being that bad offensively. I thought they had enough running backs, enough receivers, a tight end to get it done offensively. Defensively, what were they? 18th, I think we just said. They re-signed Tyler Eifert. Okay, can he stay healthy? If he is, big X factor. They re-signed their punter. They bring in Chris Baker to help along the defensive line. They bring in a Matt Barkley to be a backup quarterback. Preston Brown to play some linebacker for him. They lose Jeremy Hill. He's gone. A.J. McCarron, their longtime backup, is gone. Andre Smith, he's gone. All these guys stayed in the AFC. Or no, Andre Smith went to Arizona. But those are some key departures. You lose your starter, your backup. Okay, A.J. McCarron, considered one of the best backups in the league over the last few years. You lose Jeremy Hill, who's kind of been inconsistent, sure, over the last few seasons, but he's been one of your better running backs. And then you lose your starting offensive tackle. Sure, he's 9 years in. We started to see some wear and tear, but that hurts an offensive line that last year clearly struggled at times. And then they have some guys that are unsigned. You might see him re-sign in Eric Winston. I don't know. 11 years. Play really wasn't up on that high of a level last season. As far as Cincinnati's draft goes, filling some of these voids, trying to make up for some of these spots where they clearly lacked last year. Well, not really sure. I mean, they went out. Billy Price, physical cleared. The torn pec looked good. So they get the center out of Ohio State in the first round. Then they go Jesse Bates, the safety out of Wake Forest in the second round. Okay, you need to start getting younger in that secondary on the back end. Pac-Man's getting a little old. You have some younger corners. Okay, I can see that. Then they're able to get the pass rusher, Sam Hubbard from Ohio State. Pair him with a Michael Johnson. Let him start learning from a Carlos Dunlap and see what he can do with his skill set. Because personally, I think he's stronger than both of those guys coming in this season. Both of those guys are a little taller, a little leaner. I like Malik Jefferson in the third round. The running back, Mark Walton, out of Miami in the fourth round. We'll see. I don't really see how he fits into what they're doing there. A lot of picks. We'll have to see how some of these guys play out. Does a Logan Woodside from Toledo make sense and make the roster there as a seventh-round pick? Does a Rod Taylor, the guard out of Mississippi, make some moves? And he gets into that offensive line rotation and can kind of push some guys there. We'll have to see. They didn't go offensive line early. In fact, outside of Billy Price. In fact, Rod Taylor and Billy Price are the only offensive linemen that they did take in the draft. So a little bit better in the draft there for Cincinnati, looking at some of their needs. Coaching staff, the coaching staff is what it is. Marvin Lewis is back, even though he got fired. Then he got re-signed. They bring in Terrell Austin to run that defense. I think he's going to love that defense, especially with Geno Atkins. It basically gives him his Ndamukong Suh back. I think you're going to see that 18th ranked defense move into maybe a top 10 defense with Terrell Austin, Bill Lazor, the offensive coordinator, and Darren Simmons as the special teams coordinator. But the big change for me, Terrell Austin. He's been in Detroit the last few years. I've seen what he can do with not as much talent and a lot of injuries. And to me, even though the Lions' defense has been ranked low and was ranked low last year, he deserves a lot of praise for what he was able to do with that squad with his time in Detroit. Key games and record for the Bengals. 7-9 last year. Okay. If I'm being fair with what they have on paper, this should be above average team. Now, I don't trust them right now. Not by any means. So I have this team as an 8-8 team. One game better than last year because I don't trust them. I want to say they're 10-6. I want to say they're going to be in competition. They have a much tougher start to their schedule. In the first 8 weeks, they have the Chiefs, the Steelers, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Ravens. That's tough. That's a tough start, especially when your bye week's not till week 9. For this team, Cincinnati, I think their key games are the second half of the season. I think they need to sweep the Browns. They need to figure out how to get one against the Steelers at the end. The Raiders or the Broncos, they need to get one of those. Confidence-wise, if they can stay with the Saints coming out of their bye week in week 10, that's going to be huge for this team. Right now, I see him as about a 9-7 team. Maybe with a thing here or there, some luck here or there, a break here or there, an injury for another team here and there, you could see them 10-6. I don't think they have an 11-5 in them. I think 10-6 is probably their height this year. They could be as bad as 6-10. We'll have to see with this team. And this one is one of the tougher ones in this division for me to call. The Cleveland Browns. I had Cleveland winning 5 or 6 games last year. They ended up winning 0. Did not see that coming. They've had a lot of turnover in Cleveland. They've brought in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 free agents. Donald Stevenson, I think, retired, so don't count him. Drew Stanton. Excuse me. Drew Stanton's going to be a nice backup. 10 seasons in the league. He's going to be a good mentor. Bring in Terrence Mitchell from Kansas City. Nice pickup there. Jeff Janis. We'll see if he makes the squad. Carlos Hyde's going to add something to that running back room. E.J. Gaines gives him something else on defense. Darren Fells, he's a solid NFL tight end. He's not a Pro Bowler. He's not good. He's not great. He's solid. Bring in a lot of free agents. They lose 6 guys. Okay, Jason McCourty, solid player, getting up there in age. Isaiah Crowell had some flashes, hasn't done that much, just flashes. Sammy Coates did not give them what they thought, and they let him walk. But here's the thing with the Cleveland Browns. I was excited about them last year. I thought they had some good pieces. I thought they had a good draft, and they were building a nice young team. So when I gave them 5 or 6 wins last year, what I should have done is cut that back a little bit because of the youth, because of the inexperience. Now they come in this year, I like the pick of Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson were my top quarterbacks in this year's draft. Those were the 2 I liked the most. Then they get Denzel Ward, a little high for Ward in my opinion at 4, but that's their guy. Go get him if that's your guy. They get a guard in Austin Corbett. Then they are able to get Nick Chubb in the 2nd round. Great pickup. Add him into your running back room. Antonio Callaway, the wide receiver out of Florida. He could add him a little wiggle. They get Chad Thomas, the defensive end out of Miami. To me, 2 solid drafts in 2 consecutive years for the Cleveland Browns. This is a team I am high on right now. Okay, I am high on this team. I don't necessarily like Hugh Jackson being kept on as the head coach. I don't really like Todd Haley as the offensive coordinator. I don't like Al Saunders as the senior offensive assistant. These are guys that, in my opinion, their style, what they want to do, if they could run it completely their way, it's past their prime. It's not what works in the NFL anymore. I know Todd Haley is considered an offensive genius, and he can put points on the board, and he's done it here, there, and everywhere. He's also alienated every good quarterback that he's coached. He's also had to continue to move to new cities because his relationship with those teams and those players has not worked out. So how is that going to work with this young cluster of guys playing for a guy like Todd Haley, who it's his way or there's going to be a problem? I don't know. What does Al Saunders bring to the mix? What has Hugh Jackson shown anybody over the last 2 seasons for this man to keep his job? 1 win out of the last 32 games. And he's back this year. I'm sorry. I got to say right now, what's hurting Cleveland is their coaching staff. I think this team has enough talent on it this year to be a 7-9 team. More than likely, they're going to be 3-13 or somewhere in there. I don't think they're ready for the playoffs, but I do think this is a team that we need to watch moving forward because they are loaded with talent on both sides of the ball. And when you're as bad as they are for as long as they are, and the previous regime was able to bring in all of those draft picks and gain all of those draft picks that now Dorsey is able to use and spin into more players and whatever. This is a team that I'm saying right now we need to watch out for. Key games for Cleveland. That's games 1 through 16. Weeks 1 through 17 are key games for Cleveland. When you go 0-16, you don't have a game here and there the next season that's key. Every game is key. You are changing a culture, a mindset when you go 0-16 and you're coming into that next year. Every game's key. Every week. Week in, week out. This practice. This drill. Key. Every week's a playoff game for you. You're out there every week trying to man up. Bring what you can to the table. And hey, last place team, 0-16, last place schedule. But that's not an easy schedule. You still have everybody in the North. You're still playing Carolina. You're still playing the Falcons. You still got the Broncos and the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Saints, Houston. Like, it's not an easy schedule for them by any means. But I do see with the talent they have where they can get some games. They can probably steal one against the Steelers if they're slipping. They can get the Jets. They could get the Raiders, the Ravens. They could win at the Bucs. They're probably going to beat Cincinnati at least once. Couple breaks here and there, you're up to 7 wins. So that might be high, but I'm going 7. I went 5 or 6 last year. I'm going to say this team gets to 7-9. Why not? They have the talent. They just need to go out there and they need to make it happen. The coaching staff needs to make it happen. If this year, this team doesn't win 5 games, this coaching staff is done. If I'm the owner of the Browns, I'm going, look, I'm not wasting my money with all of this talent. We've got Josh Gordon back. We brought in Jarvis Landry. Coleman, by all reports, is doing much better. That gives you a receiving core. So if this coaching staff can't get this team going, you bring in a Carlos Hyde, you have Duke Johnson, you have Njoku at tight end. Come on. You got to be able to get at least 5. I'm predicting 7. And that brings us to Baltimore Ravens. Now, we kicked off the show. We were talking about Joe Flacco. They bring in Lamar Jackson. The writing is on the wall for Joe Flacco. Ozzie Newsome brought in Joe Flacco. They got everything they could out of Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, he's probably going to be somewhere next year. Miami, maybe Arizona. Who else? The Jets, maybe. He'll have a job, but I don't foresee him staying in Baltimore much longer. And it's not so much a knock on him. He's a good quarterback. But the game's changing. And he's on notice. You don't bring in 2 guys with similar skill sets, one a vet and one a rookie, that don't have the same skill set as the presumptive starter. You don't do that unless there's some kind of plan where Ozzie Newsome's setting this team up for the future. Which clearly then means Joe Flacco's got one of two options. You're either out the door to another team or you win the Super Bowl and keep Lamar Jackson on the bench. So that's what he has to do. That's exactly what Flacco's going to have to do to make it work for him for this season. Now, free agents, they re-signed 2 of their own. They bring in 2 more of their own. They bring in a John Brown. They bring in a Michael Crabtree. Should help that offense some. Mike Wallace is gone. That's probably their biggest loss. I'm not a big Mike Wallace fan. I think he's a one-trick pony. Let him go deep. He's not a pure route runner. He doesn't do a lot of the intermediate stuff that well, and he's not a great blocker. So he's not useful in the running game. Now, he's in Philly. He's going to go deep in Philly. He's going to take over what's the guy's name that played there? Guy's name, Torrey Smith. He's going to do that Torrey Smith role. Then unsigned guys that are out there, I don't know if, Crockett Gilmore, the tight end, maybe they bring him back if he's healthy. Jeremy Macklin's not coming back. Benjamin Watson probably doesn't get re-signed. Ladarius Webb, we'll see. Maybe closer to the year they bring him back for his 9th season. Danny Woodhead is retired. As far as their draft went, we've already talked about bringing in Lamar Jackson. That was a huge get coming back into the first round to get him at the end of the first round in this year's draft. A lot of teams were talking about it. I think maybe they reached a little bit for Hayden Hurst, but Ozzie Newsome is a tight end, a Hall of Fame tight end. So if he's going to pick the tight end, I'm going to go ahead and trust in Ozzie that he knows what he's doing. So they get a Hayden Hurst. They get a Lamar Jackson both in the first round. They pay homage almost to Orlando Brown by drafting his son in the 3rd round to play some tackle, his dad's position for that same franchise. They bring in Mark Andrews, the tight end out of Oklahoma. They get Anthony Everett, the cornerback from Alabama, another Alabama guy for Ozzie. Couple receivers with a little wiggle in them. And then they also get Bradley Bozeman, the center from Alabama, who can play some guard as well. Good draft for Ozzie Newsome going out as his last year of the GM of the Baltimore Ravens. He set them up. He got them depth. He got them guys that are going to start. I mean, you cannot argue with the Ravens draft. They did very well. Probably the best draft in the division. Right there with Cleveland for sure. As best draft, most talent, players in need, depth, all of those things. Now, as far as their coaching goes, not a lot of overturn for the Ravens, You still got John Harbaugh. Marty Mornweg did well there as the offensive coordinator. Martindale's still there as the defensive coordinator. You still have Terrell Suggs, who honestly, as long as he's there, the defense should be fine because he is the sheriff of that team. He is the guy who makes sure everybody is doing what they're supposed to do. And if they're not, I'm sure he has no problem going up and saying, hey, this is not how we do it here. I've been here long enough, and I'm telling you right now, this is not the Ravens' way. This is not how this defense is going to be. This is not how we're going to play. Now, I got the Ravens right there with Pittsburgh this year. I think they're about a 10-6 team. Key games for them, in my mind, they have to get one against the Steelers. They got to split in the division. Okay, you got to split in the division. Then after that, Saints, Panthers, Falcons. You got to get at least one of those. Then out of Kansas City, the Chargers, and the Broncos, you got to get 2 of those. You get 2 of those against those teams. You get one of them against the South. You're going to be in a real good shape to go 10-6 and compete in that division. relatively, it doesn't look like a daunting schedule. Week 10 bye, okay, that's kind of far out. You open with Buffalo. Then you go to Cincinnati. Back home for Denver. Tough road stretch, Steelers, Browns, Titans. Anytime you got 3 back-to-back on the road, that's tough. Saints, Panthers, Steelers, all before the break. So you're seeing why I'm saying you got to get one of these 3, 2 of these 3. Second half of the year for them, Bengals, Raiders, Falcons, Chiefs, Bucks, Chargers, Browns. Doable for a team like the Ravens that has that defense, that has a couple more playmakers. We'll have to see. I think the top of their limit this year is probably 10-6. I don't see them being able to do better than 10-6, but they're right there in it. I think that's a tough division. It could go pretty much, I think, 3 of the 4 teams have the no, take that back. 2 of the 4 teams have the possibility of winning the division in my mind right now, Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Cincinnati could shock everybody. I don't foresee that happening. And Cleveland should be improved, but they're not quite ready to compete for that division title or a championship right now at this point. The landscape of the NFL is forever changing. Okay? Let me finish out my prediction real quick, then we'll get back to this. So basically, division winners, Pittsburgh or Baltimore, moving on into the playoffs. That's how I see that division breaking down. Now, the landscape in the NFL is forever changing. We are starting to see the power struggle between organizations and players shift a little bit. The players are getting some momentum and getting a little more power going their way, in my opinion. And we see that the evidence of that is in the guaranteed money that is starting to be put out. We have now seen 2 fully guaranteed contracts in the NFL. One by Kirk Cousins, 3 years, $84 million guaranteed over that time, off of a $90-something million contract. So what does that mean for the likes of an Aaron Rodgers or some of these other guys who still have big money contracts, multiple year contracts left under their belt? Drew Brees, if he re-signs, he's going to get a big deal, but it's not going to be for an extended number of years. If Tom Brady re-signs somewhere, he's not getting an extended number of years. Aaron Rodgers could. Matthew Stafford, when he comes up for his next deal, could. Guys like that, what does that mean for them getting some guaranteed money? Well, I think if you look at the Kirk Cousins situation, it shows that for quarterbacks, if we're giving you guaranteed money, sure, it's going to be top dollar. It's going to be a lot of money. But it's going to be a shorter term contract. You're not going to get any more of these 5, 6, 7, maybe 10-year contracts for NFL players or quarterbacks. Now, the second guaranteed money comes out for Saquon Barkley. Draft pick, first-round pick in this year's draft. Has not played 1 snap in the NFL. He is guaranteed 4-year, $31.2 million. Guaranteed money. 20.8 signing bonus. 15 by the time he finished off writing his signature. Had a $15 million check ready for him. Training camp starts. He's going to have $20.8 million and has not seen the field. So what does that do for guys like Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley? Clearly, more experience, done more in the NFL. Saquon Barkley could tear his knees up in training camp, never see the field. He's got $15 million. Guaranteed contract. 4 years, $31.2 million. Now, there's probably some injury clauses in there where they get some money back or some percentage of the signing bonus back if he never sees the field. But that's guaranteed money for a rookie. Like, we went forever in the NFL. No guaranteed money. Now we've got a quarterback, 3 years, $84 million, and a rookie running back who, hey, don't get me wrong, the kid looks like a stud. He's built right. He's quick. He's fast. He's got vision. But he's got a lot of hype behind him. He's got a lot of wear and tear on him. Could that potentially cripple a team like the Giants if he goes out and gets hurt, and now they're on the hook for a few years trying to pay off what they owe their rookie who didn't play. That's something to think about when these teams start finally giving the players their money. Now, hey, I'm all for players getting paid. I'll say whether or not I think they deserve that much money based on their performance compared to their peers. And what that means for their peers and how much their peers should be getting paid if that's how much they're worth. But if the Giants are going to pay him guaranteed money without him ever seeing the field, based on the hype, based on the promise, that's on them. They got to figure that out. It's not for Barkley to sit back and go, oh, wait a second, that's too much. I ain't even played yet. That's the rookie wage scale.